comes the sun. Do-do-do-do.
Hi ladies, I'm really sad to be missing Flourish this year, but so glad that I get to introduce Julie Williams. Her parents, Keith and Joy, arrived in the life of our church, 35 years ago with their 3 children, got saved, transformed, and just became the most loved and influential family. They got involved in everything in the life of the church, and their family were a great blessing to us. So it was very sad when we had to say goodbye to them all, and with them moving to Cape Town. That's where Julie got married to her husband Taryn. They lead a church in Cape Town, and she's got 5 children. I was just remembering that I met Taryn in the airport, it's got to be 10 or 11 years ago, and he was telling me about his busy family and how him and Julie had these 3 kids in 4.5 years, and how busy life was. And so I said to him, you guys are amazing, and yet you make it all look so easy. And then he said, you'll never believe it, Julie is pregnant with twin boys. So Julie, you're an absolute machine. Welcome home. These are your stomping grounds. Feel at home. I know it's your second time at Flourish, and I know you'll be a delight to the ladies. So it's a great privilege having you.
Here comes the sun. I say it's alright.
Wow, look at me up there. Woohoo! I actually feel quite emotional. Just, it's one of those full circle moments, coming back to, I wasn't expecting this, guys, to the place where my whole family found Jesus at Hillcrest Christian Fellowship, now City Hill. I remember sitting on those carpeted steps. I don't know if you remember the first building. And Eric Tocknell always coming around and giving us all big hugs. And I remember Karen once standing up and presenting visiting preacher with a bunch of flowers. And I remember I must have been about 10 or 11. And you know how some memories stick with you. And I remember thinking, that's one thing I never want to do, is be a pastor or a pastor's wife. Lord, anything but that. And that's what I have been, as well as a mom and a writer for a better part of 20 years. So be careful what you don't wish for, I suppose. It's such a privilege to be here with you all. And I just want to start by anchoring us again in this text, Ecclesiastes 3 verse 11, that we've been centering around this whole conference. I think it resonates with us. There it is. He makes all things beautiful in its time. And I think it resonates with us, especially women, because underneath everything else we are trying to do with our time on earth, we hope that something of beauty can be made out of our time here, right? That something of significance can be made with our one and only lives. That when we look back, we can go, that was something. That was beautiful. And I think about these flowers here, this beautiful display of God's splendor, right? And it's like us. We're like these beautiful flowers. And he says he makes all things beautiful. And yet, like Jack said last night, I wonder if we also need to just be reminded again of the obvious, that verse starts with one word, one person, and it's not us. He makes, not we makes. And I think so often, especially as women, we can tend to go, okay, beauty, I want that. Check, look what I can do, God. You started off, but now don't worry, I don't need that messy soil that Patu was speaking about. Look, beauty, I can do it. Look, it's still flourishing, right? I can do it on my own, disconnected from the soil, disconnected from my maker. He makes all things beautiful. That's great. You got me started, God. Now watch what I can do in my own strength without you. And for most of my talk, I just want you to remember this picture. I'm going to keep on holding it up. He makes all things beautiful. For most of my life, I feel like I need to come back here and remember this. That it's not I that get to make things beautiful. He makes them beautiful, and I join him with it. I think we do this when we forget that what Jesus is more focused on isn't what we do, it's who we are becoming. Said differently, it's not what we are making of our lives as much as it is what he is making us into. And make no mistake, we are all being made into something, right? None of us are as static and unchanging and immovable as we fear or sometimes like to believe. We are beings that are being formed by what we're rooted in, either God's love or our self-sufficiency. And to drive this home, we're going to look at a woman in the Bible. You've probably heard of her, Martha. Martha, you've heard of her? The story of Mary and Martha? Poor Martha. She's been given such a bad rap. She's the sister you don't want to be in the story, right? And yet, if you're a woman here today, I'm guessing you've identified with her more than you'd like. What I want to show today, though, is that this story of Martha and Martha's story and her life is one of such redemptive hope. It is a story of God making us, despite our flaws, despite us maybe digging our heels in sometimes and thinking we can do it on our own. So let's dive in. It's Luke 10, verse 38. I'm going to read it to us. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her to help me." Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, "You are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken from her." This is the word of God to us today, friends. Maybe can we all just take a breath if you're feeling touched on your studios, a bit attacked by this verse. This isn't Jesus mansplaining and forgetting about the mental load. But let's put ourselves in Martha's shoes for a second. Have you ever cooked or cleaned in a bad mood? I'm guessing across the suburbs and cultures and centuries, the scene is pretty much the same. There's a lot of short, sharp actions. That chopping knife is a frightening thing to behold. And the pots, they clang just a little bit louder. I call this rage cooking and rage cleaning. I know it well with 5 kids and a distracted husband, and Martha knows it too. Jesus and his friends have come over, and she is stressing. There's so much to do. There's floors to clean. There's windows to shine. There's food to prepare. Jesus is right there. He's just on the other side of this thin adobe wall, so close she can hear the muffles of them speaking. But Martha is so busy making something for Jesus that she's not able to be with him. Her house is crowded with Jesus's actual, in the flesh presence. But Martha is in the kitchen and her mind is crowded with anxiety and thoughts of resentment and petty comparisons until it boils over. Jesus, don't you care? She bursts into the room. Can you imagine that moment? My sister has left me to do all the work by myself. Tell her to help me. I don't know if you've ever had a rant like that in your own home. It feels quite good, right? Get it off your chest. You are definitely in the right. And I imagine Martha must have felt like, so there. But what Jesus does next, his reply, must have felt like a needle to a balloon. Must have cut her to the quick. He says, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed. Indeed, only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken from her. What an answer. Wow. Sorry, Jesus. You mean to say that Martha had a choice? That we have a choice? No, I don't think you understand my life. I have no choice. I just have to do the next thing. There's so much to do. I've called this talk the forgotten choice because, like Martha, I think we tend to forget that we ever have a choice to begin with. And yet, friends, I really do believe that this conference, one of the things God is doing, is He is making us aware that either you surrender into His hands and into the soil, and you allow Him to make you beautiful, or you will make yourself burnt out and more broken. This is a shocking truth. I know that we have a choice, that in all the chaos and competing demands, that connecting with Jesus first is always the better option. And to convince you that you do have a choice and that this isn't just a pie in the sky thing, I'm gonna try for the rest of my talk to show you the two very different ways of living that we tend to live. A connected way or a disconnected way. I'm going to try and be quite practical about how this looks with clothes on. This thing that might be subtle. We don't even realize this choice that we're making, but how it looks as we live it out. So let's look at choice one. I've called it the way of disconnection. This is when we see our making as a means of validation. Let me begin by also just by setting aside a misconception about the story. I think a lot of us, especially women, we feel like Jesus is a bit unfair here, right? Like who was meant to be making the food? Jesus seems to be a bit hard on Martha here. Surely serving and hospitality is a good thing, right? And the answer is yes, absolutely. Jesus himself was a masterful host, and he was such a servant-hearted leader. Just a few examples. We see him serving his disciples in the Last Supper, serving them food, organizing that dinner, washing their feet. And then after he rises again, they're coming back from a whole night of fishing. Who's waiting on the beach? Who's cooked them supper? Jesus, a fish braai. So it can't mean, Jesus can't be saying, never serve. Never worry about the hospitality. Just come and meet me and everything else will take care of itself. I think what Jesus is saying, though, is he was addressing that Martha was doing good things, but she was doing them as if her life depended on it. And I think we can do the same. We can take good things and we can attach life-giving, validating meaning to them. We can take a person and think, if I can just be accepted or approved by this person, or we can take a thing, if I can just make it in my career, or if I can just make people happy, or if I can just make a life that works, I'll be saved. I'll be validated. But when we do this, friends, what happens? He makes all things beautiful. We go, I don't need the he at the beginning of that sentence. I'll do it, and I'll prove that I'm worthy, that I am worthy of God's love and people's approval. And there's three results of living a disconnected way of life, which is a choice. The first, I suppose we've had a talk about a beautiful doctor this morning. So maybe these could be symptoms of a disconnected way of life. The first is disconnect from God, a disconnection with God. Like Martha, and like the older brother in the prodigal story, when we live to try and earn our place at the table and our way in life, the first thing that happens is we get a warped sense of who God is. Look at the tone Martha uses when she's speaking to Jesus here. It's accusatory, It's not trusting, it's demanding. She's she's not asking him his opinion. She's saying, tell her to do this, right? And it's untrusting and defensive. When we see ourselves as the ultimate maker, we see God as a taskmaster. And you can also see that in the way she's speaking. Look at all the things I've done. And the older brother in the prodigal story, he lists to his father all the ways he slaved for his dad. And his dad was never asking of him. And when we do this, we see God as a taskmaster. It creates a distance between us and God. Note that it's a distance that we put in place. He's there. In the story of Mary and Martha, he's in her home. He's in her living room. Where is she? In the kitchen, doing. And in the story of the prodigal son, where is the older prodigal? There's a party being thrown. And we find him outside, a way off with his arms crossed, refusing to come in. The funny thing about when we get in these moments in our lives where we become disconnected from God and very aware of what we are doing is that there's this distance, and we tend to do exactly what these two do in the Bible. We blame someone else for that distance, either the people we're trying to serve or God himself. I wonder who you blame when you're feeling disconnected, when the gears are grinding in your life and you know you're not living a life that is flourishing and connected to the life source. Who do you blame? I wonder if, like me, you catch yourself talking to God and keeping score and listing all the things that you're doing as a way of praying / complaining. I find myself sometimes in that place, so aware of myself that I've lost sight of God and what he's doing. I'm so aware of what I am doing. And this disconnect, it leads to a trickle-down secondary disconnect between us and others. When we think about God as this taskmaster, we think of him as stingy. Like there's not enough grace and love to go around, right? So we fight for the scraps. We think, it can't be a win-win. If someone's winning, I'm losing. And so we compare, and we give into suspicion, and we're easily offended, and we're small, and we don't flourish. This way of disconnect, when we put ourselves and people on some kind of scale, it's kind of like a ladder, because we think there's just kind of like limited access to God and grace and a life that works. And so we're either comparing ourselves and seeing people above us, and that makes us feel so unworthy, and we just pine for their affirmation or for their lives. Or there's other people, thankfully, that are below us. And we can list, like Martha does, all the ways we're better than them. And that makes us feel so self-righteous and good. But both of these ways of seeing people disconnect us from each other, don't they? The only way to live is to take down that ladder and see us all as different, beautiful flowers in God's garden, all fighting our own battles and on our own journey, and here to lift one another up, not drag one another down. And the third symptom of a way of disconnect is fruit that doesn't last. Fruit that doesn't last. Like this flower, how long do you think it's going to last? Not long, even though it looks beautiful and very impressive. It's the same with our lives. We might be doing so much, producing so much, ticking so many things off that to-do list, so busy, but our lives are full of clutter that kind of just, it's like sand, it kind of turns to dust and ash in our hands. It's like fruit that withers on the vine. We spent our June holiday in Southbroom this year, and there was 2 bikes in the garage of the house we were staying in, and so my husband and I went for a bike ride, which, unlike Patu and her husband, is like a once-in-a-lifetime thing. And we couldn't get these gears to work because I'm not a cyclist, and it was fine on the uphills because that obviously was how these gears were done. But whenever it was on like just a normal straight, I would be pedaling. I was pedaling so hard, and I was inching forward. I was making so little progress for the amount of work that I was putting in. And I feel like that with my life sometimes. Like I'm working so hard, and yet I've got so little to show for it in here. The fruits of the Spirit, and in what I'm leaving behind in eternity. John 15, verse 5, Patu has already alluded to it. Jesus is speaking, and he talks about himself being like a vine and us being like branches fused in. And he says, apart from me, you can do nothing. You might think like I do, oh no, Jesus, I can do a lot. Trust me, I'm quite gifted. I know how to juggle and spin a lot of plates. But Jesus isn't talking about how much we can tick off. He's saying what really accounts and what endures. It's like dust in our hands if we don't do it rooted in him first. Contrast Martha and Mary here. They're in the same house. They're with the same Jesus. But one of them is seeing him as a source of such great peace. And the other is seeing the same Jesus as a source of such great anxiety. Same Jesus, different response, different choice. So let's quickly look at that second way of being and the choice that is open to all of us. It's the way of connection, the always on offer choice that's still on offer to you today to return to the feet of your Maker. In this choice, we let him into all of it. Sticky floors, messy rooms, dark corners of our life, and we realize that he was there already. He's not surprised. We might think we're hosting him in our lives, but he is the host. And when we live like this, when we sink our ultimate meaning into the soil of his love and his life, like a branch into a vine, there's three things that happen. The first is a deeper awareness and reliance on God. Like Martha, we all need to discover that Jesus is more interested in our characters than our cooking skills, in our company than what we can give him. That's good news, friends, that he is after you and your heart, not after what you can do for him. Ultimately, what is the purpose of your life? It's not about achievement. It's about connection with your Maker. This way of connection, though, is a choice. Jesus doesn't force anything on us. We either, like the branch, are drawing from God's life-giving Spirit, or we're not. And this is counterintuitive, by the way. As a parent, I know that one of my jobs is to go from having a child that was in my womb, utterly dependent on me, to independent, standing on their own 2 feet, able to be a human that is, of course, interdependent, but not codependent, right? But it's the opposite with our spiritual lives. We go from being far off, like the prodigal sons and like Martha, and we're meant to be continually drawing closer and realizing, gosh, I need God's grace more than I did yesterday, more than I thought I did. And we need to be more aware of God in our lives, not less. I spoke earlier about the way of disconnect being that we become so self-preoccupied with what we're doing. In the way of connection, we become increasingly aware of what God is doing in our lives and through our lives. That is the way of connection. My own life this year, I've been really anchored on that picture of John, the disciple that Jesus loved, leaning on Jesus' chest in the Last Supper. Such a beautiful picture of mature discipleship to me. This was a friend of Jesus, and yet he leant on Jesus' chest. He was getting more reliant on Jesus and aware of his need for him than less. And this year, I started the year journaling, and I basically did a little bit, probably of a Martha kind of prayer, where I said, God, please can I have a break? I'm feeling like everything is a lot at the moment. And I felt God give me such an unusual kind of promise. And I wrote it down. I felt him saying, my girl, things are about to speed up, not slow down. But if you lean into me, it'll be like you're having a rest, like you're living in a rest-filled space. I felt him say, rest in the repose, in the position of your life being leaning towards me instead of leaning out and trying to do it in your own strength. And I wonder about you. I'm not talking about grand gestures, going to live in a monastery for a month and just connect with God and not have anything else. In your ordinary, busy, chaotic life, how can you plug into Jesus and his soil rather than do it in your own strength? This is from a 18th century Scottish preacher. He said, for every look at yourself, take 10 looks at Jesus. He is altogether lovely, such infinite majesty, yet such meekness and grace. Live much in the smiles of God. Bask in his beams. Feel his all-seeing eyes settled on you in love. Repose in his mighty arms. This is the way of connection, friends, and it is a choice, and it's open to all of us. The second result, symptom of a way of connection is a deeper connection to everyone else, to others. This connection frees up this connection, because when we see that there is more than enough grace and love and mercy that can flow to us, it can flow through us to others. Like Mads was saying yesterday, we don't have to be surprised when people disappoint us, infuriate us, let us down, because we have got our ultimate source and validation from the maker of heaven and earth and from the maker of our souls, who is making everything beautiful. And when we connect like this, it frees us up. Tim Keller speaks about the freedom of self-forgetfulness. We get to actually just not bring our stuff and our filters and our triggers. We get to just be with this person and delight in them and enjoy them without being so self-aware of ourselves in a way that's not helpful. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's like when you've got something that you know is huge on your face and you're trying to talk to someone. You might be talking to them, but you're going, are they seeing it? Have they noticed this massive thing on my face? That's being overly self-aware. With Jesus, when we focus on him first, we're able to go, it's not about me. It's about this person. It's about God. And you can actually start to be more present to the people in your life. And thirdly, we get fruit that lasts when we're connected. I am the vine, you are the branches. Remain in me, and you will bear much fruit. Speaking about Mary in this passage, Jesus says, it will not be taken from her. What Jesus does in us and through us when we stay rooted in him is remarkable, friends. It can't be taken from us. And yet, part of fruitfulness is pruning. And Patu's already alluded to that. It's not just about being fruitful. When we're connected to this vine, we also are pruned. And I felt like God wanted to remind us of that sometimes his making can feel like breaking. Sometimes his love for us looks like loss. I've seen this in my own life, in friends' lives, and I've seen it in Martha's too. You see, her story doesn't end there. It goes on to a story where we find her confronting deep loss in her life. In John 11, her brother Lazarus has just died. And in this raw moment, Martha's no longer in the kitchen. She's outside waiting for Jesus. And she's the first to run to him. And she brings all her Martha-like honesty and realness. And she says, Jesus, if you'd just come earlier, you could have saved my brother. But look what happens next. Redemption. She doesn't end there. She doesn't start getting all self-aware again. She says, but I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask. Martha, look at her now. Not just honest, but faithful. And Jesus then makes one of the greatest declarations of his divinity that we find in the Gospels. He says, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live even though they die. This is a promise that is foundational to our faith, and it was first given to Martha. Jesus then asks her, what do you think? Who do you think I am? And her response stuns. She says, yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God who is to come into the world. Do you know that Martha is the second person in all of humanity to say this after Peter? The rock that is upon which our church is built. Isn't that crazy? Martha, the one that you think is stuck in the kitchen through God's unending grace, never giving up on her. She's out there. She's the first at the party. She's the first mother of our faith to put her trust in Jesus. Forget Lazarus, friends, in this story of resurrection. Martha is the one that's resurrected here. And this is our legacy too. That our stories don't have to be cautionary tales of fear and anxiety and failing and the life-sucking kind of way of living where we try and do it on our own strength. Like Martha, God is at work. His hands are like the potters in the clay, and he is redeeming all of our stories, even yours. Martha was the first in an endless line of women that connect and thread from her life right to yours today in this room. And it will not be taken from her. We remember her story. Her fruit lasts even today. Because despite her fears and her failings, she chose the way of connection. And Jesus didn't give up on her. Friends, what about you in this room today? I really feel like God wanted to drive home, as he has been doing this whole conference, that he is at work. It's not so much about what you are doing, it is what he is doing in your life through every season. And to just once again lift our gaze to the maker. He is making. The goal of your life is not achievement, it is connection. Don't let your fears and your failures dictate how you see yourself and what God is still doing and is going to do in your life. Trust that he is weaving your story. Like Martha's, like mine, he is at work and he's not done yet. We're going to now hand over to the creative team who are going to bring this idea of God weaving our stories to life in a creative way. God bless you.